Excellent. Welcome back after lunch. Welcome to this session of the 2024 Northwest Interlibrary Loan and Resource Sharing Conference. Today's date is September 19th, 2024. This session is titled CrossLink ISO 18626 Request Brokering, and it will be presented by Mark Sullivan, the Executive Director from the IDS project, who also comes to us from SUNY Geneseo. My name is Katie DeVette, and I'm the convener for the session. Please let us know if you can't hear or can't see the shared screen. This session is being recorded with permission from our presenters. We plan to make these recordings available once captions have been added. Expect an email from Huva when the recordings have been posted about 3 weeks after the conference. We will take questions from the room and from virtual attendees on Huva. Our virtual colleagues should post questions in the Huva Q&A tab, and please do not forget to upvote your favorites. After the session, please complete the survey to enter our prize contest. And with that, welcome, Mark.
Thank you very much. Good day, everybody. My name is Mark Sullivan, and I'm the Executive Director of the IDS project. IDS is a resource sharing cooperative or consortium, depending on how you want to view the two different things. But essentially, we're a group of about 120 libraries that work together to help each other out and to develop new technologies, new community resources. We work primarily with ILLiad and Reshare. However, we've also been doing a lot of work with Alma for the past little bit, and we are also working with some of the folks at Rapid for some of the other integrations. Those integrations work with things like IDS Logic, which is a system of middleware solutions that work with ILLiad and link out to a whole bunch of other different systems. We also provide, in addition to our technology services, community aspects, such as the IDS forums, which are a monthly virtual meeting where everybody in the membership can join in and have a conversation about whatever is going wrong at their libraries, whatever is going right at their libraries. We like to have a balance, but sometimes it tends to be a little bit more of, okay, this isn't working and how do we fix it? And everybody chips in coming up with solutions. We also have the Online Learning Institute, which is a series of different presentations and workshops that we provide online for free for members and non-members alike. These include the ILL 101 series that we've been doing for several years now. We did them in conjunction with OCLC for a bit, and they were originated with us and Rusa Stars quite a few years ago. We are in the process of putting together a few more of the Online Learning Institute pieces, and we will be releasing those probably in the next few months. So there should be a few things about website design and other sections coming up soon. We also have our annual conference. We just had that back at the end of July at University of Albany. The one coming up for 2025 will be at SUNY Geneseo. We're actually coming back to the home of the IDS project, mainly because we're getting back into our library finally. It's been 4 years since we were kicked out for asbestos abatement. We are now getting moved back into a fully renovated library. We have a multi-purpose room. We have a whole bunch of new stuff. So we're really looking forward to getting in there. And we thought, let's have the conference there. So there'll be more coming about that in the next few months. And so CrossLink. CrossLink started a few years ago when a couple of us were talking about the problems we're seeing with multiple silos across the country. We have folks that are using Alma Rapido. We have folks that are using ILLiad WorldShare. We have folks that are using Reshare. We have folks that are using OpenRS. We have folks that are using other systems. Problem is, a lot of them don't really talk well to each other. So we're trying to come up with ways to fix this issue. And ISO 18626, which is the standard for sending a request from one system to another, came up as a topic of conversation. 6 months later, after we had been having multiple conversations, Sebastian Hammer, who is the CEO of Index Data, and I decided to try to put together an IMLS grant. If anybody has put together an IMLS grant before, you know that they're fun. They start off with stage one, which is a couple pages explaining what you want to do. And then you send that in and cross your fingers, and then you wait. A few months later, you find out whether or not you actually get permission to file a full grant. So we got it. So we ended up putting together the multi-page document, timeline, everything we were trying to do. IDS conference comes out in 2023, still no news. I'm getting nervous. Middle of the conference, we get told that we got the grant. So we were awarded $232,000 to develop CrossLink. So we've been working on this for the last year and a half. We will be continuing, and it will be finished next summer. We put together an advisory committee, and the members have changed a bit. We've had a couple people retire. We've had a couple people that have changed jobs in universities. Originally, we had Ben Hogben from Ithaca College, but Sarah Shank took over when he retired. John Kaiser from University of Pennsylvania has joined since Tom Bruno abdicated and ran off to Princeton. God knows why, but I'll have to ask him about that somewhere. We have Lucy Harrison from Galileo. Then we have folks from Brandeis, SUNY Olis as well, and Columbia University. We have the folks from Index Data. Now, Tim Jackson's been doing an amazing job with how linking different ALMA systems together. And this has been something that he has managed to do. He's linked several different systems all across the country together. It's wonderful. It's beautiful. I don't know if he sleeps at night. The amount of work he puts in is just amazing. The hope is that what CrossLink will allow us to do will simplify what he's been doing. It will also allow us to have some of the smaller public libraries do a little bit more resource sharing as well. So what we're trying to do essentially is improve the efficiency and lower the cost of resource sharing. Whether that is because we have libraries that are using 4 or 5 different systems right now because they are in multiple different consortium or organizations. If we had a way to link them together, perhaps they would only need 1 or 2 of these then, depending on how things work. There's also the issue of reduced staffing at libraries. I don't know how many of you are dealing with this issue at your library, but mine is down to 2/3 the staff of what we used to have. If you are dealing with a smaller number of folks doing resource sharing and circulation at your library, running multiple systems is going to be more and more of a challenge. If we had a way to bring in some of these smaller libraries that cannot afford to have some of the higher end systems, but still give them a discovery layer and a way to link their resource sharing system into all the others, we would end up having the potential to have information that we just don't have currently. The first thing that comes to my mind is genealogy information that is available at a lot of public libraries, but is just not available to most of us unless we physically go there. We don't even know what they've got available. So the potential is there for us to do a lot more work helping out some of the smaller libraries with a very inexpensive way of handling it. And of course, we want to promote the interoperability between the different systems. Among the different systems. The focus has to be working together. And there are a lot of great systems, but we are split up among all the different ones. We want to provide consortial resource sharing among all the different systems as well, but we don't want to have one consortia blocked from reaching out to some of the others. We have to have this flexibility to implement what we want locally, but still be able to reach out and communicate with the others. And leveraging ISO 18626 is going to allow us to do a lot of that work. Now, ISO 18626 is available in a majority of the systems right now. OCLC has been running this for a while. Iliad is currently upgrading to use the new system. Alma and Rapido are also using it. We have Reshare that is using it. OpenRS is using it. A lot of the other smaller systems as well. The problem comes out though, it has to be manually configured peer-to-peer. And this gives us the problem of each library then has to do their own work. And every time a new library is added, they have to do additional work. Now, I mentioned Tim Jackson earlier, and this is the stuff that he's been doing for SUNY and working with all the other libraries. So he is essentially doing all of that work that could end up having to be done by individual libraries. But if we had CrossLink set up, you would only have to add in the new library to the CrossLink system. You would only have to have CrossLink added in to your local system. So we're also dealing with not just a reduction in ILL staff, but reduction in IT staff. So you're looking at trying to have libraries and consortium do borrowing at scale. Can we do that, and can we continue to work on a peer-to-peer, or do we need to have some other type of system to do this? And this is where we run into the massive overhead of having multiple peer-to-peer systems running and how you end up running through your rota to do this. Now, for current discovery options, of course, you got WorldCat. It's a great system. It's global, but not all libraries are part of WorldCat due to cost. We have an awful lot of small public libraries in New York State, which are part of the Empire State Library Network, that are simply not part of WorldCat. Their information is just not available anywhere. This is a conversation I've had with them, and why we actually had a bit of scope creep with CrossLink. Originally, we weren't going to have a front end to our discovery system. It was going to be something on the back end that CrossLink would use to determine who had something. But instead, what we decided to do was put a ViewFind front end on it with a few modifications, and then set it up so that we could have a union catalog for our smaller public libraries. We've also, I don't know how many different consortium have had different union catalogs over the years. We built something a long time ago called IDS Search, and it was based off of WorldCat. So we had the WorldCat data behind it, and we used a different front end that we built, and it allowed us to do a lot more. We did pre-lookups for holding availability information. We did pre-lookups for what you had at the local library versus your consortium versus state, local, geographic. We did a lot of that stuff with that front end. It's been retired, but we're bringing some of those ideas back for our new system in CrossLink. So the three critical pieces that we've got for CrossLink is a shared index of holdings. We are going to have a directory of services and configuration data. Some of this is going to be in a Postgres server. Some of this is going to be in a YAML file. Each library will have its own YAML file, much like we do with IDS Logic. So this will be what their catalog information is, what the different resource sharing systems they use, different consortia they're part of. All of that type of information will be in this configuration. And for those of you that don't know what YAML stands for, it stands for yet another markup language. I've always appreciated that, so I thought I would just pass that one along. Then the third piece is the actual part that we're calling CrossLink, and that is the broker that is going to stand between the two different resource sharing systems and talk back and forth between them using ISO 18626. So as I mentioned a minute ago, we have the public libraries. They're small libraries without a systems person, small budget, no union catalog, and they often don't have an ILL solution. They are sometimes the libraries you'll see sending things out to ILL-L. They are the libraries that are still doing some postcard and phone calls. We want to see what we can do to help them along. There are free options that are available for different resource sharing systems, and definitely low-cost systems as well. If we can do something to link them together using CrossLink, perhaps we can do a lot more for the smaller libraries than we're currently doing. With academic libraries, we're dealing with reduced budgets and reduced staff, and a lot of us are unable to keep multiple systems running at this time. whether it's because of reduced staff or because of our reduced budgets. A lot of the SUNYs have been dropping Iliad at this point, and several of them have also dropped WorldCat completely. They have ended up switching over to just the ALMA system that we use across SUNY in general. It limits them, but it is what they've got available right now because of budgetary constraints. And these are the problems that we're seeing just in our little neck of the woods. If you don't have the staff and if you don't have the budget, you got to cut back. So you try to figure out where you can get the most for your money. And since these smaller libraries in SUNY are already spending the money on ALMA because that is their cataloging system, that is also becoming their resource sharing system. That is one of the reasons why Tim Jackson's been putting so much work into making sure that he can expand out what's available within the ALMA system, and it's working. Now, we've also been trying to work with the public libraries, and some of the public libraries have been working with the academics, and it's been doing okay, but it's not perfect, and maybe we can do something better. All right, so this is what we've got right now for our discovery system. It is OAI data that we're pulling from the ALMA libraries, and that's getting dumped into Reservoir. For those of you that don't know, Reservoir is part of the Reshare system, which is all open access. I tease Charlie Barlow every once in a while about the fact that we steal a whole bunch of stuff that they built. But since it's open source, it's not really theft. But what's that comment about amateurs borrow, professionals steal? Okay, so we're borrowing it. But we've got it into, the data goes into Reservoir. The pod system is for those that we can't pull the data directly. And that is any other system that doesn't have OAI. So we've got a few different libraries that we're working with to pull their data in. Folio has been working beautifully. We've got a couple other libraries that we're working with. We had an accident, and if there's anybody from Stanford that's listening or whatever, thank you again. We had got our wires crossed in when we were first setting up some of the data pulls, and we accidentally asked Stanford and got their data instead of Cornell's. So we now have both. So thank you again, everybody. Appreciated that. You know, sometimes when you're got a whole bunch of balls in the air, things get messed up a little bit, but everybody seems to be happy and things are going well with that. So the data then gets processed and run through a Solr indexing system. And then it ends up having two different functions. That data is linked then into the API we are building to go directly into CrossLink. The same data is also being shared to ViewFind. ViewFind is a wonderful open source front end for your catalog. So that's what we're building right now, and that's what we're looking at. So this is a overlay of what we are trying to look at for our system. We're going to have the logo at the top. We're going to have our standard search options. ViewFind has the book covers already in it, so we don't have to do anything special with that. And we have our basic bib information. Now, we are not storing, when we talk about some of the holdings information later, you'll see that we are not pulling in all of the bib record. We simply don't need it. We're only actually using the data that we need to use for an ISO 18626 request. Anything else is just being discarded. We don't need it for what we're doing. But if you take a look in the upper right-hand corner, you'll see the green checkbox next to MIL library. Well, this is doing a search of just the local library information. Below that, we have our local delivery libraries. Those are the ones that are geographically close to us, so we can cut down on the physical shipping costs by going first to them. We also have the potential that if somebody is close enough to one of the other libraries that is here, they could travel to that library and get the item. But for the most part, we're looking at the idea that you want physical item, you want local first, and then going out. We can then kick up to SUNY, IDS Project, and then all CrossLink libraries. These are some of the things that we're trying to do based on things that we did with IDS Search over a decade ago. The idea that if you don't own it at your library, it automatically kicks up to the next group and to the next group to the next group until you either run out and nobody has it, or you find a group of libraries that have it. So looking through the CrossLink Discovery piece, this is essentially how it's going to lay out. We have discovery front end for it, but we also have requests coming in from the local management system. This makes it a little bit different because there are two ways a request can come in. It could come in through the discovery layer, the viewfind system that we're putting together, or it can come in from the first library, the borrowing library's request system. So we've got a couple different ways that information can come through, and then they go into the brokering system. The brokering system then allows us to check the directory service to see what's available. Then we can start determining who actually has it with our shared holdings index if it's coming from the local request management system. If it's coming originally through the discovery layer that we're building, then the request is already going to have that information in, so we don't have to worry about going through the shared holdings index. It's already been through it essentially. Once we determine who has something, we then run through load balancing. We also do an availability lookup to determine if it's already on the shelf, is it checked out? But we're also bringing in some of the IDS logic functions, such as a list of collections that you don't lend. This is something we built over a decade ago in IDS logic for the lending availability service. So we'll know if a library is going to be able to lend it before the request is actually sent. One, is it on the shelf? Two, is it in a collection that they lend? If it is, they get put in, and we build our list of libraries. We then go to the first one based on the load balancing, and we start the process of communication between the two libraries, cycling through CrossLink as the broker. So we are going to receive requests from one library, identify suitable suppliers, and then determine based on the information in our YAML file and through either a Z3950 lookup or other type of lookup system to make sure that it is on the shelf. Now, when we first started talking about this, we had thought we were going to have to use the WorldCat API system that we had built for IDS Logic, but OCLC has recently added a new Z3950 system which works beautifully. So we'll be using that instead for folks that are using WMS for their cataloging solution. So requests basically will end up flowing through this different flow chart. So we have the requesting library. It comes in normally through their own system, whether it is through their own catalog, through WorldCat, through whatever system. We don't know. And to be honest, it doesn't matter that much. It's their workflow, whatever workflow works best for them. As it goes through, it will then go into the brokering system. We will check the shared holdings index. We'll be able to determine who in CrossLink has the item available, and we can then begin the communication between the two libraries. If we go through our discovery service, it will start there, and then the request will go into the requesting library system and then back out to the brokering system. So we'll end up essentially creating a request in the borrowing library system using their account. So we'll have that ability set up. It's similar to what we did with IDS Search originally. We had a direct link to each library's ILLiad system, which then allowed the patron to select the item they want. It's not available at their library, but they click the Get It button. It then connected them to their library's ILLiad system. They logged in. All of the data through the open URL was already there. Patron looked at it and went, yeah, that's what I want. Clicks the Submit button, and off they went. We're going to try to set something up very similar to that. All right, so we are going to have essentially the ISO 18626 as our general brokering system. We're going to have it set up to use physical and digital, basically returnables and copies, and also non-returnables. So that's what we're going to be working on. At this stage, Reshare is in the process of setting up their non-returnables. That is being developed and should be released fairly soon. So at that point, all of the major players that we're going to be working with will have both returnable and non-returnable options. So that's something that we're looking forward to there. We will be essentially trying to create a very lightweight and extensible architecture for this. We want it to be 100% open source. We really want it to be just a messaging system for the brokering so that we have a way to have the OpenURL listener. It'll create the different requests and allow the communication between all of the different systems that we're running. Now, as I said, we have borrowed from Reshare, but we've also been talking with the folks there. And there are some things that they are developing that we are also developing. So we're talking about some potential to do similar work and sharing some of the work for the pieces that we're developing. The idea with this is there's no reason for them to develop the same thing that we need to be developed. So we're going to be working with them to make sure that the pieces that they are working on will work and do exactly what we needed to do, and the things that we're trying to do are going to work with them as well. We've also been doing a lot of talking with the folks at Ex Libris and Rapid to make sure that we can do the testing and everything. So we've got some good support from those folks as well, and that's going well. We've also been talking with the folks at Atlas, and we should have the ISO 18626 system from them sometime in December. So I think all in all, we're doing pretty well trying to come up with different systems that will work with everybody using the ISO 18626 system. The fun part is going to be determining whether or not we can actually do full communication. Now, there may be some hiccups along the way, which is why we're doing the testing in December and January with an end goal of being set by June 2025. That's when the grant ends, and that is what the plan is, to have a finished system by then. When I say finished, I mean a bare bones working system. I don't mean something with all the bells and whistles, sadly. However, we are looking to start developing a financial package for this as well, so that we can continue to expand and improve this system. Now, remember what I said about this being all open source? The only caveat that I've got is anybody can install this and run this for their consortium. However, it has to link back to the primary system. The last thing I want a silo buster to do is build more silos. The idea for the system is to make sure that we all can talk to each other. All of our systems, no matter which one of the great systems we choose, can still talk to all the other ones. It doesn't matter if you're on Alma Rapido, Reshare, OCLC, Iliad, OpenRS. There are a lot of great systems. There are a bunch of other systems that I haven't mentioned today. There's Autographics, there's Clio, there are others. If the potential is there, and if the ISO 18626 works, there is no reason why we can't work with those systems too. But we've got to try to make sure that we don't create more silos. We got to find a way using something like this system. So even though it's going to be freely available, we want to make sure that they all link back to the primary server in some way. We will be playing with this because at this point, all we can think of is essentially pings going back and forth of, does your consortium have everything? Nope. Okay, you couldn't actually find it in your group. Okay, ping out to the other crosslinks. It goes out to the first one, and then we cycle out. These are still major theories of how we can do this. This is stuff that we'll be doing over the next 6 to 8 months. It may come to a point that we will be essentially done with the skeleton, but we'll start putting some meat on the bones after the grant is actually finished. IDEAS Project has funds set aside to continue this work. But like I said, we also are working with some other groups as well. So this is what we've got for our current timeline. And like I said, we will be working on testing among different libraries from February until June 2025. Now, I've got a few different consortium that have already voiced an interest in working with us on this. I've also got volunteers from the last conference I did a presentation on that I got half a dozen people saying we were interested, sign us up before I'd even finished. So we'll see what we've got. But at this rate, I want to start off with just a few libraries and then we'll start expanding out. We will, right now, we're going to be testing some Alma to Alma. Then we're going to start in with some Rapido. Then we're going to be doing some Iliad, Reshare, OpenRS, and hopefully some WorldCat libraries as well. So we're going to be doing a lot of different things over in the next 8 months, 9 months. Okay. Questions, anybody?
Thank you so much. We do have a few questions in the chat, but if folks in the room have questions, please feel free. I got a hand up over there while I'm walking over there. When using CrossLink, do libraries send the request to CrossLink and it determines the best lender, or does it add partners to our current systems and we still send those to individual libraries?
Let's see. So the request would be through your system. Let's go with the Alma workflow right now. So CrossLink would essentially be your last library, quote, library in the Rota. This would then kick out to the CrossLink system, at which point it would go through its collection of libraries that you're associated with. You can choose whether they're part of your consortium or part of other groups, or it could be everybody at that point that's in CrossLink. That depends on how we end up configuring your setup. So you will know who your CrossLink libraries and partners are, and then you'll be able to have the request go to them in a load balance sequence.
Thank you. This is a great presentation. I wanted to ask you about scalability because I have a feeling you're going to be a lot more popular than you think you are. What do you know, without the need for storage because you're working with everybody else's catalogs, how do you see the need for, you know, server activity pinging back and forth between multiple libraries? How do you see that scaling up over time, especially after the grant ends? Is there a reliable funding source for that work to be done?
The funding source that we're currently working with would be some of the IDES funds that I've set aside for this project. Moving forward, we will be working to determine what the best options are for actually funding it, whether it's a minimal fee for libraries or that want to be part of this membership, whether it's additional grants. My feeling is we would do it kind of the way we're doing it with the IDES project as a whole. The IDES project charges $1,650 a year for membership. That gets reciprocal borrowing agreement among all the members, full access to IDS Logic, full access to Alias, and IDS forums, and some of the other things that we offer as well. So when we talk about amounts that we will be charging, I don't see it being much more than that unless it's a very, very large library. I could harass Harvard a little bit, but I think if we're talking a public library versus a Harvard-sized library, then we are probably talking a few $1,000s difference. So we're talking a very small amount for the small public libraries and a larger amount for a larger library. That being said, server space and we currently handle 1 million touches a day with the IDS Logic system. We currently have, gosh, how many gigs is that database? It's got to be a 500 or 600 gig database right now. May even be a little bit more than that, that handles all the different transaction data. The possibility of needing to expand beyond that is something we've talked about it as well at Index Data. That's why we're going with a Postgres system. That's why we're looking at either AWS or Rackspace for final server location. The beauty is They can be extended. So just because you start off with a smaller system doesn't mean that you can't add more processors, more RAM, more storage space.
We've got some simpler questions and some very complicated questions in Huva. The simpler question, will this have provision for charging or paying lending fees?
That's actually probably going to be through your primary system, but to be honest with you, I don't think we've really addressed that yet. So my thought would be through your primary system, and we would relay that information.
Sounds good. Do we have another question from in the space? Yes.
I was wondering how we, like, whether it's a website or whatever resource, like how we can follow along with the development of it. I know you're saying June or July 2025 was probably the launch date. I'd be really interested in seeing like a demo when it's done. So I was wondering how I could follow the progress.
Yep. We currently have a link up on our website, which is just to the very basic information about it. We will be adding more information as soon as we have a little bit more to work with. IDSproject.org. Yep.
Excellent. People would like to know, is this going to work with SAML or LDAP authentication for ILL systems? Would a library need to set up additional configuration or permissions for CrossLink?
Since we're not actually a resource sharing system like Iliad or WorldShare or Rapido or Alma, all of the SAML and patron authentication is actually going to be through your own systems. So we won't be touching any of that type of user information.
So behind the scenes stuff.
Yep.
Very good.
And there's a part 2 to that one. I'm sorry.
One moment. Would a library need to set up additional configuration or permissions for CrossLink?
There would have to be some, like I said, with Alma, you would have to add us into the ROTA. For Iliad, there would have to be some ISO configuration work done. For WorldShare, there would also have to be some ISO configuration work. I'm assuming the same thing with Rapido and definitely with Reshare too.
Very good. And someone from the chat would also like to know on that ISO for WorldShare ILL and Tapasa, are you working with OCLC on that integration?
Well, Peter, we're talking next week, right?
To be continued. Excellent. We have a few more minutes. I can just keep going down on Q&A, but if somebody in here wants to ask something, we can do that too. Cool. Can you clarify, with the use of reservoir, would libraries need to contribute holdings, or is that only if you're using Viewfind?
No, you would definitely have to contribute holdings. Otherwise, CrossLink wouldn't know if what you actually had available. There was talk at one point about actually doing individual lookups for each one, but we realized that that would just be completely untenable trying to do that many Z3950 lookups, and we would probably break somebody's system. So having everything indexed locally is a much cleaner option, but it's going to be a much reduced collection of cataloging information.
Very good. And to follow that up, is it going to see real-time availability or just whether it exists or not?
It'll have the existing information, but the real-time availability will be through a Z3950 lookup into your actual catalog. Because otherwise, you're looking at uploading data, and then somebody comes in and checks it out. It's got to be real-time. It's got to be through Z3950 or some type of API if your catalog doesn't support Z3950.
Very good. We got about 5 more minutes. Questions in here? It's that post-lunch slump. So online, someone's trying to wrap their head around this. So the idea is that in essence, all these consortia and system worlds will have their own shared indexes, and CrossLink will query each in turn to find out who has what you need?
In theory, if we ended up having multiple systems, multiple crosslinks, then yes. The last thing though, like I said, the last thing I really want is to have everybody, all different consortia having their own crosslink system and them not talking to each other. The idea here is to have these systems talk to each other so that if you don't have something local and you don't have something in your local area and you have to go outside the consortia, then you would have CrossLink that would talk to another CrossLink system. And no, we don't know how we're doing that yet.
To be determined.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. I saw a hand up, but I think it was just gesticulation. More of a comment than a question from the chat. FYI, since you mentioned non-returnables and reshare, Minitex just went live with an MVP version of non-returnables in reshare.
Okay.
So apparently some folks have it.
Sounds good.
Excellent. Anybody else in our last few minutes? Excellent. Well, if nobody else has any questions, we want to thank our presenter and thank you all for attending this session.
Thank you, everyone.